The sea taught me many things. It taught me that storms don't ask permission before they arrive. It taught me that darkness doesn't announce itself before it settles in. And it taught me that some men are called to stand watch while others sleep. I suppose that's how I became a lighthouse keeper. Not because I was brave, not because I was fearless, but because I discovered early in life that purpose often waits where comfort refuses to go. The lighthouse stood on that cliff long before I arrived, and by the time I left, it had become more than stone and mortar. It became my home. It became my teacher. It became my friend. And in many ways, it became the thing that kept me safe. I was barely 27 when I first climbed those winding stairs. The lighthouse was young then, strong, proud. Its stones were bright. Its lantern burned with a confidence that could be seen for miles. Back then, I believed strength meant never being afraid. Life has a way of correcting foolish assumptions. The first great storm came during my second winter. I remember the radio crackling to life. A ship was lost. Men were frightened. The captain couldn't find his bearings. The sea was swallowing everything around him. I can still hear the desperation in his voice, and I can still remember the strange calm that came over me. Not because I knew all the answers, but because the lighthouse did. The beacon kept turning. The walls held firm. The storm screamed. The lighthouse whispered, "Stay steady." That night, those sailors found their way home. Not because of me, because of the light, because of something that had been standing long before I arrived. That was the first lesson. A man doesn't have to be the light. Sometimes he only needs the wisdom to tend it. There were nights when the ocean seemed determined to erase us. Waves taller than houses crashed against the rocks. Lightning split the sky. Wind shook every window in the tower. Yet every morning, the lighthouse remained, scarred perhaps, but standing. The storms taught me something every man eventually learns. Life doesn't reward you for avoiding hardship. It strengthens you through enduring it. The lighthouse wasn't strong because it had never faced storms. It was strong because it had survived every one of them. So was I. Years passed. Then one day I met her, the woman who could calm my spirit faster than the sea could disturb it. She became my wife. Together we built a family, 2 beautiful children, a son who asked endless questions, a daughter whose smile could brighten even the darkest watch. The lighthouse changed during those years. Technology improved. New radios arrived. New equipment filled the rooms. The world moved forward. But every evening I would glance at the photograph sitting on my desk, my wife, my children, my reason, and I realized something. The lighthouse wasn't the only thing keeping watch anymore. Love was. Every sacrifice carried meaning. Every lonely night mattered. Every storm had purpose, because someone was waiting for me on the other side of it. That is one of the greatest blessings a man can ever receive. Not success, not wealth, not recognition. Someone to come home to. People often visited in those days. Some thought I was foolish. Others thought I was lonely. One young traveler once asked me a question. "Why do you stay?" I smiled, the same way old men smile when young men ask questions that can only be answered through living. I told him the truth, because the lighthouse stayed for me. When I was young and uncertain, it stood. When I was raising children, it stood. When storms came, it stood. When loss visited, it stood. A man learns loyalty by witnessing it, and no companion had ever been more loyal than that tower. Time eventually wins every argument. The cracks grew larger, the walls weakened, the equipment aged.
Repairs became impossible. Engineers visited, inspectors visited, experts made their reports. The verdict was unanimous. The lighthouse would be retired, not because it lacked honor, not because it lacked history, but because time had finally asked more from it than it could give. I understood, but understanding doesn't lessen heartbreak. The final night was the hardest. I climbed the stairs one last time, ran my hand across the weathered stone, touched the old railing, looked out over the sea, and listened. The silence felt different, as if the lighthouse itself knew, as if it understood our journey had reached its end. The next morning I locked the door, for the first time in my life, and for the last. I stood on the cliff and watched the tower, the same tower that had guarded ships, protected families, saved lives, and somehow protected me too. Not from every storm, but from becoming the kind of man who runs from them. The lighthouse never gave me an easy life. It gave me something better: purpose, character, conviction, the ability to stand firm when everything around me was shaking. And perhaps that's what every man needs, not a life free from storms, but a lighthouse, something steady, something true, something worth standing beside. Because in the end, the strongest men are not those who avoid the wind. They're the ones who learn how to stand in it and keep the light burning. The lighthouse is gone now. The beacon no longer sweeps across the water. The radios are silent. The rooms are empty. But every lesson remains. And when life grows dark, when storms gather on the horizon, when uncertainty whispers fear into your spirit, I still remember what the lighthouse taught me all those years ago. Stand firm, keep watch, protect what matters, and never let the storm convince you that the light has failed.